You're listening to Worshipology with Curtis Parks, a biblical, practical, and spiritual conversation about living and leading worship. Today's episode is brought to you by PraiseCharts. Worship leaders and pastors, are you looking for the best new worship songs to introduce to your church? From Phil Wickham to Elevation, Passion, and Maverick City, PraiseCharts has the latest ready to go. Whether you need chord charts, lead sheets, or full orchestrations, everything is formatted for your team and available for instant download. Stay current, save time, and lead with confidence. Check out PraiseCharts.com today and get your hands on the freshest songs for Sunday.
Well, hey, thanks so much for listening to the Worshipology podcast. This is a conversation that's all about living and leading worship. And today's guest, Alex, when did we first meet, man? Because I know we've kind of kept in touch for quite some time now, but when did we first connect, bro?
Yeah, man, it's been, 10 years ago or so, somewhere around there.
Wow.
You were swinging through Bristol and we got together and had coffee, and it was good, really good.
That's awesome, man. So we got Alex Wilson on the podcast. Say what's up, man.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Great to be on here. Thanks so much for having me, Curtis.
Alex, you're one of those dudes that has just kind of been so faithful at a single church. I mean, you probably have more to your story, but 16 years at Highlands Fellowship, an incredible church that's in that southwest corner of Virginia and northeast corner of Tennessee. You got 4 locations. You are the director of worship gatherings. I want to dive into what that means, but dude, for our audience, man, why don't you just kind of tell a little bit of your story? How'd you get started in worship leading, in ministry, in the church world, bro?
Yeah, man, thanks. That's so kind. That I do serve a great church, and God has just been moving in some really cool ways recently. But yeah, I started in worship ministry. Man, I grew up with just music in my blood. My mom got a piano degree from college, and she always played in church, and she always had music playing at the house, and always had us with some kind of instrument or a choir or something going on with music. So just grew up with it, and I came to know Christ at a pretty young age. I was about 8, and did that through a children's choir at my church, which again, music is just kind of through my story. But when I was about 15, picked up a guitar and was like, hey, I'm going to teach myself this. My youth leader, my youth pastor found out my secret that I could play guitar a little bit. I knew like an Oasis song, maybe, where it's 3 chords.
Nice.
And that's it. Right.
Hey, Wonderwall translates to worship pretty well.
I'm telling you, that's it, man. That's it. He's like, 3 chords you can play at church on Sunday. And I'm like, wait a second, these are my peers. I'm not sure about this. This is not a good idea, but, no, that's how I got my start. He got me going, and man, never looked back. Always have been in a worship team of some kind through college.
Wow.
And thought I was going to be a doctor. I thought I was going to med school and some of that stuff. God changed my path. Said, hey, that's not what I have for you. And that was pretty, rocked my world at the time, and but seeing his hand move me towards worship ministry, and ended up getting an MDiv. And man, Highlands is my first full-time ministry assignment since I graduated from seminary. So it's a blessing that I've been able to be there for 16 years, and just pastoring people towards worship, and just trying to help them connect with the Lord every week. So yeah.
That's amazing, man. Now, did you kind of come on staff as a worship leader or a worship pastor, or just kind of like in a stipend contract? What did that look like, kind of the evolution over those 16 years? And then, dude, talk to us a little bit about your current role now. What does it mean to be director of worship gatherings? Because I saw on your staff page, there is a worship director and a worship director assistant. I'd love to kind of hear, like, what's the difference for you guys in those different roles, man?
Yeah, for sure. So I started as the worship leader at a single location. I was full-time, and so I did have other roles in addition to just leading worship on Sunday. I was responsible for, different things in the programming, technology, lighting, some of those things. And also with small groups. I was at a smaller campus, and I was the only full-time staff there. So I did a lot I wore 7 different hats. I'm there opening up the building on Saturday morning for the cleaning crew to come in. And so there's just a lot of different things. I learned a lot of great things about ministry, it's not just what happens in the spotlight on stage that matters. There's so many things that matter, like dude, plunge in the toilet on Tuesday when nobody's going to be in the building. And that's important. That is serving people, loving people, the way Jesus would. So, so that was a great experience for me. It's where I started at Highlands at a full-time role, but then I did move to a different campus and then moved into a central role. I guess around that, 10, 12 years ago, I moved into a central role where I served multiple campuses. And then more recently became the pastor of worship gatherings, where I oversee not just music, but also like the technology that we use in worship, the creative process, and I help out with messaging, just help our pastor to figure out, hey, what series are we going to do? What things do we need to cover? I'm really facilitator with that. Okay. And so I have a bigger picture role. So there's a lot of staff that are incredible that work around me and work with me on my team to accomplish all of those other things. So I'm not deep into planning center and a lot of the administrative things. Some of that stuff happens outside of my role. So just very blessed to be able to have these incredible people who love technology and who know way more than I do about that stuff. Man, I know enough just to follow the conversation sometimes, but they're like, they're researching all these things and they know all of these in-depth stuff about their particular area. So we're a little more specialized really cool. with the guys around us and the ladies who serve. And it's just incredible to see them using their gift that is a little bit more specific. And I can kind of take the 30,000 foot view sometimes. So
that's what I was going to say. You're kind of like the duct tape that kind of holds it all together, and you don't have to be a master in any field. You just have to know enough to really keep your footing in those conversations. And dude, talk to us a little bit about, okay, so, multi-site, obviously so many churches now embrace that model and it looks different for everybody. Yep. Some are kind of like super autonomous, and then others are almost like, copy and paste clones. And what does it look like for Highlands in that multi-site model? And then with your role specifically, talk to our listeners about what does it mean to be central and then campus specific? Like, because our church here in the Richmond area is kind of in that same role. Like I'm a central worship pastor, but then obviously we've got 3 campuses operating every week. So for you guys at Highlands, what's the difference between a central role and a campus role? And then how do you kind of play well together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of our campus specific roles are like campus pastors, children's folks, and those things. So a lot of that in the worship area is centrally driven, but then we have teams at each campus who obviously we've got worship leaders. We have a position that's a musical director, which I know a lot of churches have that to help guide the band, help lead rehearsal. And then we've got a care coordinator or a care leader at each campus. Okay. We just identified that was a need, is to make sure that someone on their team knows what's going on in their life and can pray over that and can share that with the rest of the team, that somebody who doesn't necessarily have to be the leader over the entire thing, but somebody who just has a gift to care for and love on people. So we kind of have those 3 primary leadership roles at each campus: worship leader, musical director, and care leader, and then the team members there. And so we do program everything from a central perspective. So we're choosing the songs, and we're choosing the flow. We're choosing...
So same songs at every campus on a weekend?
Same songs at every campus, yeah. So,
and does that kind of flow with like whatever sermon series you're in, or how do you guys go about that?
Yeah, that's the plan, right? Hopefully it matches up. And it usually does pretty well. So the way we come to that is we do have a song bank of about 30 songs, and we switch that out every 6 months. And what we do is we get our worship leaders and our MD leaders and our care leaders to input on that. Hey, what songs are you hearing? What songs are not working well at your campus? Wow. What songs do we need to add at your campus? And get lots of good feedback from those leaders. And then we narrow those down. And we actually vote. Not everybody votes these days, but we vote. Yeah. And we say, hey, what are your favorite songs that you feel like we need to add in? And then whatever top 6 or 8 new songs we can get through in 6 months, we'll do those. And so based on that list, we're going to say, hey, what 3 or 4 songs do we need to do this weekend that's going to match up with what our pastor's speaking about that we feel led to do this weekend. So that works out really well. It allows us to streamline a lot of our production as well. So when you're doing the same songs at every location and you're using the same programs, right, to program these things, then you can copy and paste a lot of that. Now, some of that has to be, does have to be like tweaked
kind of customized
for each campus, depending on how many screens they have and those kind of things. But a lot of it translates over, so we're able to be pretty efficient that way. But
now with the worship schedule, do you guys have one main campus that you own and operate where all the rehearsals happen and you guys are all collaborating at, or is it 4 separate locations that you guys kind of own and operate?
Yeah, so it is 4 separate locations, and we basically do rehearsals on Sunday morning. We just come really early, and everybody comes prepared. That's one of our one of the things that we stress in our onboarding is that, man, you gotta know your stuff. You gotta know your part when you come in. The team's depending on you. And we try to do a really good job.
Dude, let me pause you there because that's so key right now. I mean, that's actually a conversation we're having a lot of with some of our campus teams is like, man, just the really we're relying on our musicians and singers to prepare. How do you stress the importance of that? But then how do you also kind of like in a vision way of doing that where it's like, hey man, you really got to care about these songs. And one of the ways you do that is preparing and sitting with the songs. Is there kind of like a practical piece of advice you can give those who are listening today, man?
Yeah, we're huge on preparation, and it's not just musical preparation either, man. It is spiritual preparation as well. Wow. And we really highlight both of those for our teams. And in our onboarding process, we do both of those things. We say, hey, we want you to be prepared spiritually, and we want you to be prepared musically for the task that is ahead of you. So in our even before they hit the stage, as they're coming on board, we go through a book with them. It's interesting that we're talking today. It's one that you wrote, actually. It's called Sound Check.
Oh, and let's go, man.
Yeah, I'm not getting any.
That's so cool,
no
man.
royalties, but no, we use Sound Check with our team. So we'll go through that book with them, and we'll say, hey, here's some important topics in worship that you're going to come into contact with, and you're going to rub up against this when you're leading worship. You need to think about all these things, and so we'll read that book. We'll go through it with them, sit down 3 or 4 times, have coffee, and just chat about all the things in worship ministry and prepare them spiritually for what they're going to have ahead of them. And then on the more practical musical side, we do things like virtual sound check, where we'll have them come in on a Wednesday afternoon, and they'll learn a song and they'll sing as if it was a Sunday morning, or they'll play their instrument, they'll play drums or whatever it is. With the rest of the live band that had played on Sunday. So, it's basically like a lab, they're getting some reps in, on the stage where they're going to be, so that when they get to that moment, they're more prepared for what that looks like. So we'll give them coaching. We'll actually ask them to self-evaluate, because man, you can learn way more from watching yourself than from somebody telling you, hey, you did this wrong or did that wrong. And we're usually our own worst critic. So, we video it and send it to them, and they evaluate themselves. And if they're ready, they move on. If they're not ready, then they continue that process until they are. So, yeah.
And is this all kind of like an audition process, like phase A, phase B, or is it kind of like you have a single audition and then all of this stuff that you're talking about, as far as like, going through a book with them, discipling and getting them on stage for that virtual sound check? Is that kind of like step 2 of an audition?
Yep. That's like step 2. So step 1 would be just cold audition. Hey, send me a video of you singing something. And then we do a callback that's pretty standardized. We have them like learn specific things and come back and do that. And then at that point, then we do an interview with them and say, hey, where are you at spiritually? Let's just make sure you're a good fit for our team. And then if the answer is yes, then we move forward. And then we do these virtual sound check, make sure that we commit at that point, hey, you're going to be a part of the team. And we feel like you're at the point where we're going to be able to move through this orientation process with you. And we kind of cast our vision of our team and talk about values, and that's a huge part as well, to keep everybody on the same page, is talking about vision and values. So, but then we go through that process of taking them into virtual sound check. And sometimes we'll even get them in with a live team at rehearsal time, not at a service, of course, do something that's more low stakes, and get them in there with the team, and to where they get comfortable, and teach them how to prepare, right? Because you'll definitely learn how to prepare that way. And then when they're ready, they come in for Sunday, and it turns out great usually. So, yeah.
So is this process kind of more of a one-on-one basis, Alex, or is it kind of like you do this in a group? Hey, we got 5 people that we're onboarding in this next month. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it usually is more individual based.
Okay.
But we have done it in groups before, when we've had several, then we can kind of go through those together. And, especially that spiritual part. Sometimes that it can be really good in a group, because you can learn from people who are going through that process with you as much as you could from just a one-on-one mentor. And that's really been valuable for our team too. So
that's awesome, man. Do you guys do anything as far as like getting all the campuses together, whether that's like monthly or yearly, just kind of getting everybody on the same page? And what does that look like?
Yeah, those are great times. We do team night is what we call that typically.
Let's go.
We try to do that a couple of times a year at least, if we can. And that is a time to cast vision. That's a time to worship together, because man, they're always putting the worship on. So for them to be able to sit back and just worship together, it's really good. And fellowship, just chat and talk. Team night's great. We sometimes will do some like additional training at team night.
Okay.
Where, hey, we're getting ready to do a new thing in worship, and we want you guys to be trained on how to do that, so they're ready for it when it comes. Yeah.
Dude, any other just insights on multi-site worship for maybe worship leaders who are about to launch that second campus with their team? What have you learned? What's kind of been like that one nugget where it's like, man, if I could go back when we were launching Campus 2 or Campus 4, that you would tell yourself?
Yeah, man, there's so much. So like, I can't boil it down to just one, but maybe I can give you a couple.
Give us some gold, man.
Man. Yeah, you can't be everywhere all the time, right?
Wow.
I think about myself. I can't. So you got to learn how to duplicate yourself, and not necessarily duplicate yourself, but what are those key values that you want to see exemplified in your people, in your worship leaders? Wow. What do you want to see them do? And then to be able to come up with a system, a process that helps build that quality, that value, that experience in them. So, we've got vision for our worship ministry that supports our vision as a church, but like we've got 3 core values: heart, and excellence, and relationships. Those are kind of 3 core values that we stand by. We got to have a heart for Jesus and a heart for people. We got to have excellence, which is bringing my best, not necessarily the perfection level best, right? Yeah. Because nobody's ever going to reach that. But I know that my best tomorrow is not the same as my best today. So what can I do today to make my best tomorrow better? So we're always trying to get better. And relationships, we're not an island. We're designed to live in just this environment of encouragement, strengthening, and coaching. We believe in progressive excellence, where we get better all the time. And in coaching, we can see that happen. So just find those people who have a heart of learning and a coachable spirit, and just help them see the things that are really important to you, and help them, give them tools to be able to take steps towards that. And man, you just got to give them feedback all the time, because that's something we believe in a lot. We ask for feedback from our leaders because they're on the ground. They see what's happening at their campus, and we don't always see that. So I need to know, what are you seeing? What's resonating? What's working? What's not working? And then also, hey, here's something that I see that we need to go all after together. And just that mutual communication, feedback is really critical.
Dude, talk to me a little bit more about that, because that is so valuable. And I'm just finding this in my own ministry, and I know, feedback is one of those things. You don't want to feel like you're stepping on eggshells, but you also don't want to be so afraid that things don't ever get better. So two questions for you here on feedback. Number one, what would you say is like the rhythm of giving and hearing feedback? And then number two, how do you do it in a way that doesn't necessarily seem confrontational, but it's more in a coaching manner?
Yeah. So first on the timing is don't wait. Listen, it's only going to get worse in your brain, and it's only going to get more awkward. Hey, you remember that thing you said 3 weeks ago on stage? I've been meaning to talk to you about that. You know how that feels? Yeah. It's like you've been sitting on this and
you've been festering for 3 weeks.
Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I think people would rather you just be upfront with them sooner than later if it's something that you really feel like you need to address. And it's like, listen, man, just helping them see, I want the best for you. And the way that you do that is you have coaching on the front end where you develop this relationship with them where there's an openness, and you got to be willing and open to receive feedback yourself. Okay. So like, I can't take somebody where I haven't been myself, and to say, hey, you need to be humble and open to my feedback, but I'm not going to receive feedback from anybody else. That's not the attitude, right? So I think just allowing yourself to be coachable, to model that for them, and even to go after that and ask others around you, ask your pastor, hey, how can I improve? What can I do differently? And I really want to know. And so I think, do it quickly, do it with a heart of humility, and say, listen, I don't know it all either. I'm growing. I'm learning. Here's some things that I'm struggling with. And I really want to help you succeed on the platform. I really want to help you succeed in the calling that God has placed on your life. And it's not easy. Listen, those conversations can be very awkward all the time. I'm having awkward conversations. But at the same time, you got to do it from a place of love and a place of humility, and just say, hey, I really want the best for you. And here's something that I see. Would you be open? And sometimes just asking them, hey, would you be open to some feedback? Something that I see that I think you could improve on. And
that's so good.
Yeah,
that's so good, man. And I think I would resonate with all that you just said. I mean, because, it's usually those conversations that you don't want to have that are the most valuable at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And they're going to grow you and your leadership. And I just, I think over the last, 15 years of doing ministry myself, it's like, it's always those conversations that you remember going into, like, I don't know how this is going to go. But then you remember like coming out of it where you didn't avoid any hard topics, but you did it with grace and truth.
Yep.
And you're just able to navigate that, hopefully with the heart of Jesus. And man, everybody just wins in that scenario. Like everybody comes out better, yourself included, man. And I know just from our interactions, man, like the humility factor is so key. Like when you're a leader that isn't above feedback, but you actually value it yourself, it says a lot to your team, man. Yeah. Dude, talk to me a little bit about the team that you do have, like with, worship director and then all your campus worship leaders. Like, what does that synergy look like, and how do you keep that, the relationships, obviously multi-site, it makes everything a little bit tougher. How do you keep relationships front and center and making sure that everybody not just is on the same page, but really feels valued in the team aspect? Yeah,
definitely. A lot of communication has to happen for that. And
that's good.
Again, I'm pastor of worship gatherings. We've got our director of worship and associate director of worship. And then we've got our production staff as well. And we're all at campuses on the weekends, right? And, so we're trying to make as many personal contacts as we can and trying to show value to the team. And some of our staff are more localized to one location, and they're most of the time, if not all the time. And then others float from campus to campus. So I'm one of those who just kind of, I'm at whatever campus needs a guitar player or a sound guy or whatever. So I'm just kind of floating. But that allows me to really connect with with the teams really well. And we do something I started doing several years ago. I call it just a weekly notes video, and we make our master plan of the service. If you use Planning Center, we use a master map on Planning Center, and that everybody goes along with that. And what I do each week is I sit down on usually Monday or Tuesday, and I just talk through that with the team. Hey, here's where the message is going to go. Here's where these songs are going to connect with that. And here's where there's maybe a moment for you, worship leader, to speak into the church and just seek the Lord. What would he have for you to say to the church this weekend? And so we're trying to, a lot of communication, a lot of just shared vision too, when you have that big picture in mind, and continue to just cast that big vision to the team, and they understand where your church is going. They understand what we're going after as a worship ministry. Like, it makes that connection a lot better. But it does take a lot of communication. It takes a lot of just reaching out. Hey, how you doing? So we do that on just a weekly basis too, but periodically.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are some of like the greatest tools that you've come across in the lines of communication? Are you guys on like Slack? Is it like a text thing? I mean, obviously you got the Planning Center for kind of the big picture service flow stuff. What's been some of those really good resources that you can recommend on the communication side of things?
Yeah. Definitely Planning Center for any kind of service stuff for the weekend, music things, all those kinds of things. We actually we use Facebook groups for our worship teams. So our teams are just in a group together. That seems to be a pretty everybody is pretty much on that, regardless of generation or technology ability. Most people can manage a Facebook group, right? And it's kind of a low barrier of entry, and that's been effective. We've also had some through the years, sometimes a text group would work or something like that, but those are kind of our two main like group kinds of communication tools. So
that's really cool.
Yeah,
man, I can't just stress how important like communication is, especially with multi-site, because it's like the more complicated anything gets, the more opportunity for like, course corrections and pitfalls and just misunderstandings and stuff like that. I mean, talk to us a little bit about just where you have seen the value of good communication work, and then where the lack of communication maybe doesn't work. Like, what's one of those things that, hey, just be aware of this. Like, if communication is not one of your main values, this could happen. And I've seen it happen.
Yeah. The wins for sure have been, again, in that weekly video where I just sit and it's nothing fancy, right? But just talk through the gathering and here's what we have in mind. And that's really brought a lot of unity, a lot of alignment, a lot of just, hey, what should we do here? Well, what did Alex say in the video? I hear people saying that on Sunday when I'm there. Wow. Hey, what did you say on the video? What should we do here? That's
awesome.
So that's brought a lot of alignment for us. Man, I think when there's changes, that's been our biggest failures. That's been my biggest failures. Oh man, I told the band, but I forgot to text the vocalist that we had a key change, or I forgot to text the production team they didn't know, and somebody showed up at rehearsal and the building's locked. Like those kind of, I just, oh man, I'm like, oh dude, I am so sorry. And those kind of hurt. So we try not to leave anybody out of those communication things. And then it's a large team, right? So occasionally you're going to miss something in somebody's life. Yeah. There's going to be an event, there's going to be a thing. And I hate to drop the ball when you've got somebody on your team who is serving the Lord faithfully, and you missed a major event in their life. So, we really try to almost systematize some of those things, even like, I don't know if you can hear me, build a system. Like that's that's kind of a common theme when you start looking at multi-site. You can't just rely on your own strength, your own talent, your own eyes to be able to see everything. You have to build a system that will kind of catch all of those things that would otherwise fall through the cracks. So, things like care and trying to make sure people's birthdays are recognized and some of that stuff. We have to, we try to build it out. And my staff is incredible. Wow. I call them my staff. They're the Highlands staff, and they're serving the Lord in pretty amazing ways to serve these teams and love on them really, really well. And man, it's an honor to get to see that in action.
That's awesome, man. Well, it takes a village, and you know that, and I think you guys are doing it great, man. Dude, I have to ask this, 16 years faithful at one church, what is it that's kept you there? And, for someone who's listening, that's like, man, maybe they're on that fence of the grass is always greener until you get there, right? So it's
absolutely.
In this day and age, I think it's such a transient time that we live in, where people are jumping ship and moving on to bigger and better things. And then, the reality is that, maybe God's trying to teach you something in a season. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but dude, for 16 years, like what is it that's kept you at Highlands? And what's that word of encouragement that you could give somebody that's like, hey man, just hang on there?
Yeah, man. I've always said, I'm going to hold it loosely where the Lord wants me to go, I'll go. And, I told him that when I first started at Highlands, like, I'm following the Lord here, and I feel like he wants me to be here with Highlands. And if he calls me somewhere different tomorrow, I will go there. And, but man, I have just been heart and soul, felt like this is where the Lord has wanted me, and he's confirmed that and confirmed that and confirmed that. Every time I come to him, I'm like, Lord, I'm here for whatever you want. And even thinking about, just what's my role at the church? Do I need to, to consider something different even at Highlands? And I'm like, Lord, show me. I just want what you want. And he just continues to confirm, I've got you where I want you. So, I'll keep serving him as long as he wants me to, wherever he wants me to be. And I'm just so grateful that I've been able to be here at Highlands in this one body for 16 years. And I've seen a lot of change, in our church, man. And it's been neat in different seasons, just to see what God has done. And, to be honest, I think I'm more excited than ever, after 16 years, just seeing where God has brought our church. And we've got a new lead pastor. He's been here. Well, I say new. He's been here almost just over a year now. So, man, I'm just really excited for the future of our church and what God has been doing in this season. And man, it's just so good. I will say, I heard a message one time about Abraham and just how he had to launch out. Right? He had to. He didn't know where he was going. He just said, God, you're calling me to a new land, and I'm going to go. And I heard a pastor say, it took a lot of faith for him to do that. And sometimes it takes just as much faith for you to stay as it does for you to leave. Wow. And so maybe there's somebody out there who's saying, do I need to, I really feel like this other opportunity could be neat, but what's God calling you to do? And maybe you need some faith to stay. Maybe you need to let your faith rise up, because God's got you planted right where he wants you. And sometimes it's easier to leave. Sometimes it's easier to say, hey, I could have a fresh start over here. But man, sometimes God really wants you to stay planted. So,
man, that's so encouraging, dude. I love how simple it is, right? Because I mean, you're just like, look, I told God, wherever you want me, I got you. And if it's here, I'm good with that. It's like, I think sometimes we overcomplicate the gospel. We overcomplicate hearing from the Lord. We overcomplicate discipleship, et cetera, et cetera. We just overcomplicate it when it's just so simple. Like ask the Lord what he wants you to do and then do it. I mean, it's actually pretty easy when you think about that, dude. And I just think it speaks volumes about your character, man, that you're, that's that simple for you, man. And just really impressed right now, man. In our few moments, I don't know how our time like flew by so quickly, man, but that's just that's signs of a good conversation right there, man.
Feels
dude,
like having coffee at Starbucks, man. We sat there for like 3 hours or something the first time we met. It's been
I remember,
we could go
man.
on for a long time.
Well, it's like when a couple brothers have been doing this for a while, and it's like you sit down with somebody who's like-minded, and it's like, I think it's just something that clicks.
Yeah.
So sure. Kingdom, man. Well, dude, I got to ask you the question I love asking everybody towards the end of the podcast. It's like, man, dude, Alex, what is the Lord speaking to you right now? What's God just kind of been having on repeat in your prayer life as you've been seeking him?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I just keep getting drawn back to just really the basics, man. I don't know about something about the pace of life and just the draw of social media and all the things right now. It's just so fast. And I just keep getting drawn back to what are those core basics of the faith, just spending time with Jesus and, doing spiritual disciplines, Sabbath, fasting, generosity, those kinds of things. Like how do I resist the pull of culture, and how do I just rest in the Lord? And there's this verse, Exodus 14, where Moses and the people are they got their backs against the wall at the Red Sea, right? And he's like, you know what? Right now, we just need to be still, and God will fight for us. If we would just be still and be silent, God will fight for us. And so that's really resonated with me lately. And I feel like if I can just be still and listen to Jesus and do these basic spiritual disciplines that I know will connect me with him, he's going to take care of the rest, and it's going to be great. So,
wow. Be still and God will fight for us. I feel like that needs to be on a t-shirt. That's so good.
Let's
dude.
Go. Yeah.
Oh, Alex, you're one of the best, man. And you're the real deal. Man. And I appreciate you spending some time with us on Worshipology, brother. Thank you so much.
Back at you. Hey, everybody go out and read Soundcheck. It's great.
Oh, let's go, man. Thank you.
Yeah, for real. Love it. Thanks, Curtis.
You've been listening to Worshipology with Curtis Parks. To connect or learn more, visit curtisparks.com. This episode was brought to you by your friends at PraiseCharts.com. Whether you need simple chord charts, lead sheets, vocal arrangements, full orchestrations, or stems, we've got it all ready to download instantly. Plus, their affordable bundles and flexible formats save you time and money, so you can focus on leading worship and not scrambling for resources. If you haven't checked them out yet, now is the time. Visit PraiseCharts.com and get everything you need for your worship team today.